They say that time heals all wounds. I would add to that, actually. Time sober and living an honest life heals all wounds. And also, living according to your values continues to heal wounds. Figure out your values. Live according to your values. After you make your amends, never ever revert back to your old behavior. Don't get discouraged. Stay on your path. Hello, my friend, and welcome to another episode of I Love Being Sober, sponsored by Camelback Recovery, Arizona's preferred sober living option to help AA newcomers stay sober during their first year in the program. If that's you or someone you know, then you're in the right place, because my name is Tim Westbrook, and I'm the CEO and founder of Camelback Recovery, here in the always sunny and always sober Scottsdale, Arizona, where my team and I, over the course of many years, have helped thousands of people to stop their suffering and continue on their path to recovery. Let's get clear on one thing. We believe that a relapse or a slip is not a part of recovery. And that's exactly why this podcast is dedicated to you or any loved one you know in their first year of striving to live a clean and sober life. The purpose of this podcast is to come clean with all of the misinformation that's out there about recovery, addiction treatment, mental illness, and the strategies to stay sober in general. So if you believe you're in the right place, or if you know someone who is struggling with addiction, it's my privilege to share this podcast with you. Now, I have no idea if you and I have ever met, but what I do know is that AA saved my life. And I also know that to find long-term recovery and live happy, joyous, and free, it is not just about stopping your drinking, drugging, gambling, sexual indiscretions, or any other addiction you may have struggled with or suffered from. Because at Camelback Recovery, we believe that sobriety can and should be fun. And look, any recovery process is not easy. It is challenging, it can sometimes be annoying, and for the most of us, it is often difficult to stay on the path. But here's the good news. The self-awareness you gain from listening to this podcast, especially if you are in your first year of recovery, will help you make better choices, which will ultimately lead you to living a kick-ass sober life. Visit CamelbackRecovery.com to learn more about our treatment strategies for alcoholism, drug addiction, or mental illness, and we even offer recovery coaching so that you can enjoy the freedom and happiness you've always searched for. Welcome to the 79th episode of I Love Being Sober, the show devoted to people in their first year of sobriety. If you are pressed for time, listen at 1.5 times speed and you will still get all of the content from this episode. No need to take notes because I've paid a professional note taker to do that for you. The notes to this and other episodes are available when you look for them at ilovebeingsober.com. Please do that when you're done listening to this episode. You'll be glad you did, and that's my personal pledge to you for listening in its entirety. Now, although your first year in sobriety is central to our discussions, you and I will also explore other fascinating and important topics such as health and fitness, self-care, food and nutrition, breath work, meditation, biohacking, just to name a few. All of these things are your gateway to living a kick-ass sober life, which is our mantra at Camelback Recovery. In this episode number 79, you'll learn about the second mistake that leads to a relapse along with how to avoid it. This is mistake number 2. You'll discover that expecting instantaneous results is one of the mistakes people make that lead to a relapse, along with why it is so important to avoid this mistake if you want to avoid a slip. I will share with you how you can avoid this mistake. I'm going to give you my story and my experience with this mistake. Based upon what you hear, you will be able to figure out how it works for you. So lean in and listen carefully, because this episode could have a significant impact on how you can make it to a year and much closer to living a kick-ass sober life. Also, this podcast is like an AA meeting or a CA meeting or an NA meeting. in that everyone here is either clean and sober, struggling, about to relapse, thinking about getting clean and sober, or whatever it may be. So, if you learn anything, or if you hear anything that resonates with you throughout this episode, please let us know in the comments section of YouTube or Apple, iTunes, or wherever you're listening. What you share might resonate with someone else and possibly save them from a relapse or maybe even save their life. Every review and every comment gets us that much closer to helping one more person or one more family. So don't be shy and be sure to share what resonates with you in the comment section. The second mistake you must be aware of if you want to avoid a slip is expecting instantaneous results. Initially, you will see positive results. You will start feeling better. You will start sleeping better. You won't be hungover. You will start thinking more clearly. Many people will be supportive of your decision to start living a new life. However, it is going to take you some time to mend broken relationships, make your amends, get your health back, and clear away the wreckage of your past. Do not think everyone is going to forgive you and be ready to get back the old relationship you once had, especially if this is not your first time attempting to get clean and sober. You must just keep doing the next right thing and keeping your side of the street clean. If you stay clean and sober and you continue doing the work, as they say, your life will improve in all areas. You must continue doing the work. If you don't continue doing the work, that means you're a dry drunk. You must continue doing the work. And if you continue doing the work, your life will improve spiritually, emotionally, physically, mentally. It's not all going to happen at the same time. And some people think, hey, I'm sober and I've made my amends. I don't understand why people are still pissed. I remember early in sobriety, my mind used to spin. I would stay up at night thinking about things. Anytime a curveball was thrown at me, my mind would spin. I would stay up thinking about how I could manipulate the situation, manipulate the person. I would justify or rationalize things in my mind. So I'm up at night and thinking about things. And it doesn't happen really as often to me today. Maybe it happens like once or twice a year. And there's something thrown at me that really throws me for a loop. I have a story about that I'm going to share. But first, I remember my sponsor, what he told me to do if I was up at night and my mind was spinning, just to recite the first line of the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change. And I would just repeat the first line of the Serenity Prayer over and over and over. And then my mind would start spinning, and then I'd realize my mind was spinning a bit again. And then I'd bring it back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. And that really helped me go to sleep. And next thing you know, I'd wake up in the morning. So that was a good exercise. So if your mind is spinning, that's something you can try out. So I have a story of one of my landlords. I'm going to call her Amy. She's been one of our landlords at one of our recovery homes, actually. And this is a home that we took over in 2018. And there was another sober living home, another sober living operator that was there before me. His name was Joey. And I remember talking to Joey because she basically kicked Joey out of the house. And I talked to Joey about it. And Joey was like, dude, she's crazy. She's effing nuts and good luck. And I remember, and I was like, okay. I mean, the house, it was a great house. It was a great sober living house. So I went into the situation knowing, and she did a couple of things that really helped me realize that she's kind of nuts, in my opinion, in my experience. And that was Joey's experience as well, is that she was nuts. And I remember a couple years ago, we had a situation with the air conditioner at the house. The air conditioner was broken. It didn't work. And she has a home warranty and she wanted to go through the home warranty. It's August, okay? It's in the middle of the summer in Arizona. It's 112 degrees outside. It was like record-breaking heat, like 28 days in a row. And so the AC stopped working. It stopped working once. The home warranty fixed it. It stopped working again. I went out and I purchased 5 portable air conditioning units. We actually offered to move all of our clients to another home, and they all said, no, we want to stay here. And like I said, I picked up portable AC units. So that was good, sufficient to keep the bedrooms cooled off enough. But the kitchen didn't have an AC. The kitchen, it was over 100 degrees in the kitchen. It was crazy. And I remember she basically refused. She refused to pay for the portable AC units. She refused to give us any compensation, anything. She refused to give us any sort of help because of what we had to go through. And it was just crazy. But I know, like, hey, I signed up for this. I knew who I was dealing with. And I could have taken her to court. And I actually did give her a 10-day notice, which the 10-day notice caused her to go out, and I think she ended up paying a little bit more to get the job done more quickly. And the first time she got it done, she didn't get it done sufficiently because she wanted to cut corners. The AC contractor actually is also a friend of Bill. And he said, hey man, I just want to let you know, like this, what she wants us to do isn't going to do the job. You really need another AC unit. So that's what she ended up doing. Now I'm remembering. She ended up paying for one in the house she had added onto the home. So the home was like 4,000 square feet. She had one air conditioning unit, which barely cooled off the house. And then they didn't have that same air conditioning unit available. And so the contractor was recommending that we go with 2 air conditioning units as opposed to 1. She didn't want to pay for 2, so she paid for 1. It wasn't sufficient. So we ended up having to, contractor had to come back out and add another unit. It was a huge just shit show. But I remember, okay, this is where this thing really spun me out. This caused me to stay up at night thinking about it and thinking about her. And I remember thinking, oh my, how she was tall, blonde, and she would come into the house with little skimpy clothes. And it's like, I've got people in recovery at this house, and it was just not appropriate. The way that she would dress, the way that she would come to the home was so not appropriate. So I remember sitting there thinking, I'm at night and I'm thinking about it and I'm dreaming about it. And I'm dreaming about accidentally spilling hot coffee on her. And I remember thinking that I wanted to give everybody water guns and shoot bleach all over her shirt. And I remember thinking, God, this is not good. And spiritually, I'm not in a good place if this is what I'm thinking and this is where my mind is taking me. So thankfully, I was able to talk with a couple of my friends in recovery. I was able to share my story, share my thoughts, talk to my sponsor about it. Nothing ever came of it. I mean, I got over it, but that's just kind of an example of my crazy mind and what happens. Now, my mind normally doesn't spin out like at all. It's not because things don't happen to me, because trust me, I have a lot that happens in my life. I get curveballs thrown at me all the time. The reason why I'm not up at night thinking about things is because I'm more spiritually fit. I'm more emotionally fit. I'm able to handle situations that used to baffle me. I believe that life happens for me, not to me. I am responsible. I'm not a victim. I'm never a victim. I make choices that put me in the situations that I'm in. And that belief, being responsible, not being a victim, is how I stay grounded. It's how I stay sober. It's how I stay on the right path. And actually, one of the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz is to not take things personally. I've learned to not take things personally. People do things. It doesn't have anything to do with me. I know the only thing that I can control are my actions. And it took me some time before I learned to truly not take things personally. Again, the serenity prayer, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Prayer, meditation, doing the next right thing, keeping my conscience clean, staying sober, being of service to others, being other-centered as opposed to self-centered. These are all the things that keep me grounded, keep me centered, and keep me on the path. Going back to expecting instantaneous results, I had an issue with my dad and with my stepmom, and this was many years ago. And it caused a huge falling out between me and my entire family. And the only person in my family that would talk to me was my mom. My sisters wouldn't talk to me. Their spouses, nobody would talk to me. I was completely cut off from the entire family. This was a very difficult time for me. And there was no way that I would have been able to make it through if I didn't have AA, if I didn't have the fellowship, if I didn't have my friends in recovery, if I didn't have my sponsor, my therapist, all of my routines, all of the things that I do. My dad wasn't even willing to talk to me. He didn't talk to me for a year. His requirements were stay sober, see a therapist for a year, and come up with a plan to make it right. It ended up being a financial amends, and it was a big financial amends. My older sister and her family, they wouldn't talk to me either. They wouldn't talk to me it was a couple of months, and then they finally got to a place where they were willing to talk to me, and it's like, we're family. And so I was able to reconcile with my older sister and her family. My little sister wouldn't talk to me for about 2 years. And I'm actually still, today, 2022, I'm still not allowed at their house because her husband still has not let the issue go. And it's been 8 years. And it didn't even have anything to do with him. And it had nothing to do with his family. But hey, you know what? I don't take things personally because it doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm not in control of her husband. I can only control my actions. I have zero energy against him. He's on his own path. When he is ready, if he's ever ready, we can hopefully reconcile. And I've got no energy. It's like, hey, I've got nothing but love. I'm sending lots of love. I love my sister. I love her kids. I love her family. It really sucks that I'm not allowed at their house. But hey, it's like life happens for me, not to me. And it's just part of life. And what was my part? That's the only thing I can look at is what's my part? If my conscience is clean, if I'm living according to my values, then I'm good. I've got nothing to worry about. It doesn't matter. My stepmom, she wouldn't talk to me for 5 years. And I needed to complete the financial amends, which I did. It took me about 5 years. And what that meant that my stepmom wouldn't talk to me, it meant that I wasn't invited to family gatherings for about 5 years. No Christmas, no birthdays, no holidays for about 5 years. So it was difficult. It was difficult. But guess what? Everything happens exactly the way that it's supposed to. God's in control. Tim's not in control. I'm only in control of doing the next right thing. I'm only in control of myself. And guess what? Today, everything is great. Like my dad and I have an amazing relationship. I have an amazing relationship with my stepmom, both of my sisters, and we had to go through what we went through. And I'm just grateful that we made it out the other side. And if I was taking things personally, maybe I wouldn't be where I'm at today. If I was expecting instantaneous results and I was expecting everybody to forgive me and everybody to love me and everybody to not be pissed off at me, then maybe I'd be in a different place. Maybe I would have relapsed. I don't know. But I didn't relapse. And I continued on my path to recovery. I continued living my life and doing the next right thing. I believe that my higher power, which my higher power is God, is in control. Everything happens exactly the way it's supposed to. And I don't need to worry about how things play out. I just need to worry about doing the next right thing. And here I am. I'm over 11 years clean and sober as at the time of this recording. I'm still actively working a program of recovery, and the relationships I have in my life are better than they have ever been. They say that time heals all wounds. I would add to that, actually. Time sober and living an honest life heals all wounds. And also living according to your values continues to heal wounds. Figure out your values. Live according to your values. After you make your amends, never ever revert back to your old behavior. Don't get discouraged. Stay on your path. So here's a quick review about the insights you and I both rediscovered in this 79th episode of I Love Being Sober. The second mistake people make that leads to a relapse is expecting instantaneous results. along with why avoiding this mistake is imperative if you want to avoid a relapse. I also shared with you an example of how I was able to avoid this mistake and how it has strengthened my sobriety and my relationships. Based upon what you have heard in this episode, you can figure out how it works for you. And remember, these insights will only work for you if you work them. So please be sure you apply what you've learned in this episode of I Love Being Sober, because if you do, you will be on your way to living a kick-ass sober life. I think you'll agree that's exciting to think about. And speaking of reviews, before we end this episode, I want you to go to the review section on iTunes or YouTube, or leave a comment on YouTube and type in one thing that resonated with you in this episode. Every comment counts, and what you share could resonate with someone else that is struggling and potentially save their life. You will also be asked to rate this episode, and I hope I've earned 5 stars from you. So go ahead and share the one thing that resonated with you in the review section of iTunes or the comment section of YouTube. It'll take just 3 minutes out of your day, but what you share could not only save you, but it could also save someone's life. Okay, that does it for this week. I'm Tim Westbrook, and I hope that our paths cross again next week for I Love Being Sober, the show devoted to people in their first year of sobriety. Sound good? And do whatever it takes to join me for episode number 80, because we are going to dig into mistake number 3, not finishing the steps. I will share my experience with this mistake along with how to avoid it. I encourage you to invite a friend, a loved one, or a sponsee to listen to I Love Being Sober. I can't wait to connect with you then. It will be an insightful episode, so I really want you to join us with your loved one.